Location: Denver, Colorado. Time: 5:42 a.m. Day 1. Sergeant Owen West woke up not to his alarm clock, but to the crackle of his radio. His apartment was located above the arsenal of a local shooting school, where he worked as an instructor after being discharged from the Army. In the past, he was a sniper in the 75th Ranger Regiment, with 9 missions abroad and dozens of confirmed targets. But his peaceful life was quiet until today. Radio: Zone 7. Rapid Response Unit blocked. Repeat: the source of infection is out of control. Owen sat up in bed, put on a t-shirt, and immediately got down to business. He had his own emergency bag, a Glock pistol, knives, a first aid kit, and most importantly, his Remington M24, modified to perfection. He went out onto the roof. Something was wrong in the city. Flames, sirens, helicopters in the air, but no reports from official channels. Owen looked through his binoculars. There was a crowd at the intersection near the supermarket. People were screaming. One man started attacking a woman and bit off part of her face. Others attacked too. Senselessly, cruelly, quickly. He couldn't believe it. But he looked through his sniper scope. Sure enough, these weren't looters. It was something else. Something dead. This isn't a dream, Owen whispered. He fired the first shot straight into the head of one of the attackers. He collapsed. The others didn't stop. They didn't even look back. The first shot wasn't to save anyone. It was a signal. The beginning of war. Owen West quickly gathered his gear. Over the years of service, he had learned to get dressed, equipped, and ready for battle in a matter of minutes. In his backpack, ammunition, a first aid kit, 2 water bottles, canned food for a day, and a map of the city. He didn't know what was going on, but he was sure of one thing: the people in the center needed cover. He climbed down from the roof, locked the armory, got into his old Ford F-150, and drove out onto the street. The city looked like a battlefield after an airstrike. Crashed cars, fires, glass underfoot, and corpses. They were lying everywhere. But some of them were moving. The dead have no right to rise, Owen said, stopping at the intersection. Ahead of him was an overturned school bus. Next to it, 3 police officers were firing at zombies. One of the cops fell, leaving the other 2 face to face with a crowd of infected. Owen opened the door, rushed to the roof of a 1-story laundry building, unfolded his M24, and calculated the distance, 322 meters. Let's work. Methodically. No panic. A shot. 1 dead man fell. Another shot. The second one had his jaw torn apart. Shot. The third one, through the ear. The cops saw him, nodded, and then started pulling out their wounded colleague. Owen gathered his rifle and went back downstairs. The police were already loading their wounded colleague into an SUV. "Who are you?" one of them shouted. "Just a sniper," Owen replied. "And I'm not running away. I'm moving on. The city center will be worse." "You're crazy." "Maybe. But as long as I'm shooting accurately, there are people who will live." Ford moved on. Ahead, there was more and more fire, and fewer people. Owen was approaching what would be his first real battlefield in this new world. The streets were filled with abandoned cars, broken shop windows, and blood. Car horns were still blaring here and there, creating the impression that the city was moaning in pain. Owen parked behind a concrete barricade near a high-rise building, the Gorodon Towers complex, where, according to radio reports, civilians, including medics and ambulance workers, were trapped. "If they die, the chances of survival for thousands will drop to 0, he said to himself, checking his ammunition supply. He moved inside. Inside the tower, it was dark. Some of the electricity was still working, but the elevators were dead. He slowly climbed the stairs to the 17th floor. On the 11th floor, he made his first contact. It was a dead man in a security guard's uniform. Owen pulled out his knife quietly, quickly, into the heart, then down the spine. But the body fell with a dull thud. Others were already coming toward the sound. Owen froze. 3. No. 5. Silence is not an option. We need to go higher. On the 17th floor, he reached the conference room, where 8 people were sitting behind a barricaded door. 2 nurses, an ambulance driver, a paramedic, 3 students, and a child. "Who are you?" asked the woman with the bandaged shoulder. "Owen West. I won't get you out of here, but I'll make sure you have a chance." "How?" "I'll turn this floor into a fortress, and the roof into a tower of fire." Owen set up a sniper position on the roof. He installed a silencer, laid out boxes of ammunition, and prepared his optics. From here, he could see the entire city center and the crowd. Hundreds of dead people converging from all directions toward sound, toward movement, toward life. He fired his first shot from above. The dead began to fall, and the people watching from the windows of nearby buildings saw that there was someone on the roof shooting at their heads and not missing. Owen reloaded his rifle and whispered, "The game has begun, and I am not the target. I am the hunter." The sun rose higher, exposing the destroyed city. From the roof of the high-rise, Owen saw what Army reports would call total infrastructure collapse. He saw columns of dead bodies in the streets where coffee had been sold just yesterday. He saw overturned ambulances, gnawed corpses on the sidewalks, and torn remains at bus stops. And he saw the living, screaming and waving their arms from the rooftops, trying not to give in to despair. Owen gripped his M24, his brain working in combat mode. Every bullet is a life. Every second is a chance. Every shot is a choice. A teenager, about 13 years old, was running down a narrow street. Behind him were 4 infected. He stumbled. Owen took aim. A shot. One zombie fell. Another shot. The second zombie's head turned 90 degrees. The third shot went through the jaw and into the back of the head. The fourth was already approaching, raising his hands. A shot. A hit in the eye. A complete skull fracture. The teenager looked up, trembling, and saw a man with a rifle. He knew who to thank. But there was no time to thank him. He ran away. Owen checked his ammunition. He had 37 rounds left for his main rifle and a few more magazines for the semi-automatic M14 he had grabbed from the car. He also had a Glock, but that was for extreme cases. Suddenly, there was a muffled explosion from the west. The roof shook. A huge crowd was moving toward the tower. Not dozens, hundreds. Damn, this isn't just a group of infected people. It's an avalanche. He went down to the 17th floor, where civilians were still holding out. Some were crying, some were praying. Owen said firmly, "We have a maximum of 30 minutes before they get here. We're not leaving our positions. We're holding this floor. And the roof is mine. Are you alone? That's enough." He returned to the roof and took his position. Hundreds of heads. The goal was simple. One roof. One sniper. One chance. And he wasn't going to give up an inch. They advanced like a flood. No shouting, no commands, no fear. They just walked. They fell, got up, walked again, slowly, silently, relentlessly. The dead. Owen lay near the parapet, his rifle on a tripod, his optics perfectly adjusted. The wind changed, and he quickly adjusted the range. Shot. 226 meters. The zombie falls. Shot. 198. The obvious leader, no skull. Shot. 247. The one climbing the pipe. Done. He kept his rhythm. His breathing was steady. His pulse was under control. But time was passing. His ammunition was running out. Shot. Click. The magazine was empty. Quick replacement. Behind him, the door to the roof. Cracking. It can't be. Owen looked back. They broke into the building. He went down. Quickly. The 17th floor, complete chaos. A woman screaming. A guy covered in blood. One of the students fell, bitten. Panic. Owen pulls out his gun without hesitation. A bullet between the eyes. He was already dead. You have to understand that. We can't lose this floor." "How much time do we have?" the nurse exclaimed. "Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 3. If we stay, we're all dead. Or," he looked up, "we go to the roof. And we hold it until the last bullet." The last survivors climbed upstairs. Owen organized the defense. Tables, furniture, boards. Everything became an improvised barrier. He handed out 2 knives and instructions to each person, explaining where to strike in close combat. Then he sat down next to his Remington. He checked every bullet. 13 rounds. And too many targets. He looked at the people, the same medics, children, and young people who an hour ago were afraid to even look out the window. Now they were holding metal bars in their hands. "They want to break us," Owen said. "But they're forgetting one thing. We're still alive. And we can still hit our targets." A strange, almost unnatural silence crept through the concrete walls and rusty doors. After hours of fighting, screaming, explosions, and gunfire, the city fell silent. Owen lay next to his rifle, his finger not on the trigger but on the pulse of the air. He could feel something changing. The dead had not disappeared. They were simply waiting. "This is not a retreat," he said. "It's the calm before the storm." Everyone on the roof was silent. Even the child wasn't crying. The nurse stared intently at the horizon. One of the students sat nervously, busily, unhappily, taking apart a knife. Suddenly, the radio. A signal. Static noise. And then, "I repeat, this is the National Guard helicopter. Anyone in downtown Denver, respond. We see crowds of infected people near the garrison towers. Are there any survivors?" Owen grabbed the radio. "This is West. Sniper. On the roof. The 17th floor is occupied by survivors. We need evacuation." "Roger that. We're already in the air, but it's impossible to land below. The infected have flooded the streets. The roof is your only chance. Wait. 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Possibly the last of his life." He surveyed the roof. The barricades were ready. The people were ready as they could be. He glanced at his Remington M24. 9 rounds left. Then he took his spare M14. Automatic fire, less accurate, but closer range. "Listen," he said to everyone. "In 12 minutes, we'll have a chance. But between us and it, there will be maybe 100 dead. So, we hold back. Not heroically. Just, we live. Until the end." The nurse squeezed the child's hand. One guy crossed himself. Another drank the last of his coffee from a metal mug. Owen just reloaded. A scream. From below, moans, scratching. The crowd of zombies came back to life. And it was moving upward. "Listen, city," Owen whispered. "If this is my last word, let it sound like a gunshot." The first zombie broke through onto the roof. He knocked the door down with his shoulder skin hanging in shreds, mouth filled with bloody foam. He didn't even have time to roar. Owen shot him right between the eyes with his Glock. "Contact," he shouted. And everything exploded. The second, third, fifth. The dead broke through like ravenous dogs. Clattering hands, rotten fingers, torn skin, bulging eyes. They didn't think. They weren't afraid. They just kept coming. A shot. A shot. A fist. Reinforcement. A scream. Blood. The nurse injected one of the dead in the neck. No effect. The guy threw a rock. Another smashed a zombie's head with a pipe. Owen worked coldly. The M14 thundered. The plastic stock crackled. The automatic weapon burned in his hands. He missed, and one of the dead grabbed his bulletproof vest. Owen fell, rolled over, pulled out a knife, and stabbed it right under the chin. The neck cracked. Blood splattered the tiles. "Helicopter," the girl shouted. A black shadow in the sky, the propeller cutting through the air. Soldiers on board. A turret. A rope. The helicopter hovered over the roof. "This is Bravo 1. We see you. We're dropping the ropes. You have 5 minutes." Owen approached the edge. The ammunition belt was empty. There were 2 bullets left in the rifle. He raised the sight. "We have to let them pass. No further." A shot rang out. The dead man climbing the ladder fell, dragging 3 others with him. A shot. The last one. Silence. The sound of the helicopter closer. Owen threw down his rifle. It had done its job. "Everyone to the rope," he shouted. One by one. "Don't panic." The dead were approaching. Hundreds. More. Owen was the last one left. He chained the door shut, grabbed his pistol, and looked around. Everyone was already on board. The helicopter took off. He ran. The air cut his face. He jumped. Hands caught him. He hovered over the city, over hell, and watched as the zombies took over the roof where, just a few minutes ago, he had stood, the last sniper. "I didn't leave anyone behind. Not even myself," Owen said, lying on the floor of the helicopter. "The line didn't fall. Because I am the line." The air inside the helicopter was saturated with sweat, gunpowder, and silence. Those who had been fighting the dead on the roof just a few minutes ago now sat in semi-conscious silence. Owen sat with his back to the side, his machine gun on his knees. His eyes were still full of fire and dust, and his fingers trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline overload. "West, right?" One of the soldiers approached him. He was young, with a medical service patch. "Yes." "What the hell happened out there?" "We saw it from the air. You held your position on the roof for half an hour against an entire army of infected." Owen simply replied, "I'm a sniper. I was paid for my accuracy. Today, I was paid with lives." The helicopter descended into a wooded area. Below them was the temporary evacuation zone of Bravo Ridge, fenced off with barbed wire and sandbags. The place was an old forestry station that had been converted into a makeshift military base. Everything here was quieter, but not calmer. Bodies in black bags. Cues for medics. Soldiers who were no longer laughing. Helicopters returning empty. And sometimes not returning at all. Owen got out of the helicopter, carrying only his M14 and Glock. His Remington remained on the roof of the skyscraper, where the first phase of his war had ended. A colonel approached him, a sturdy man with graying temples. "West, I read your file. In Afghanistan, they called you the one who never misses. I left everything there, Colonel. Here, everything started over again. I need someone who doesn't just shoot. Someone who sees. And acts. You've seen what's happening in the city. We're losing it. We're losing the country. We need eyes on the ground. Are you ready?" Owen was silent for a few seconds. Then he nodded slowly. "I don't need orders. I need a mission." The colonel handed him a map. "There's another group of civilians. They've barricaded themselves in the medical campus area. If they die, we'll lose our last field hospital. Do you think you have a few bullets left?" Owen smiled for the first time that day. "Bullets? Maybe not. But I have a target." A group of 6 people left Bravo Ridge Base, 2 soldiers, a medic, a driver, and Owen West himself. Their Humvee raced across the fields, taking a detour to avoid the main roads, which were already overrun by the dead. In a matter of hours, the zombies had changed the very geography of the city. Traffic in the center had come to a complete standstill. Neighborhoods had turned into death zones, and skyscrapers had become graves. They reached an abandoned shopping mall with a view of the medical campus. Owen climbed onto the roof and took out the M14 with a scope that he had been given to replace his lost Remington M24. He looked through the scope and saw. The main hospital building was surrounded. On the roof, there was an SOS signal made out of sheets. At least 70 to 100 infected people were crowded around the entrance. People were visible in the windows, signaling with flashlights. "We're running late, but we can still make it." Owen quickly sketched out the route of penetration and fire support points. "Here's the plan. You go to the flank and make some noise. They'll come after you. I'll go to the roof of the clinic across the street. I'll start filming. You go in and evacuate the survivors. We have 15 minutes, that's all." 3:07 p.m. Owen took up position on the neighboring roof. The sun was blinding, The sight was glare. The wind was unstable, but he was experienced. He could feel it on his cheek. A shot. A head torn apart. A shot. Two fell, one after the other. A shot. A jaw. A shoulder. A spinal cord. The dead, hearing the noise from the flank, changed direction. The soldiers fired short bursts, not to kill, but to lure them in. The medic burst into the hospital. Over the radio. Survivors found. 7 people. One seriously wounded, another, a doctor. Preparing for evacuation. But time was running out. One of the infected suddenly jumped out of a tunnel that wasn't on the map. He bit the driver. The driver shot him in the chest, but it was too late. Owen saw it. The shot. It killed the dead man. But before his eyes, his friend was turning into an enemy. From the radio. We're losing a soldier. He's turning. Owen squeezed the trigger. He knew what he had to do. Let me. I'll make it quick. The shot. Silence. 3:21 p.m. 7 survivors, including the doctor, were pulled from the building. Owen covered their retreat. He lost his friend, but he saved 7 others. And he knew that next time, he might be the one they were covering. Call a helicopter. Evacuation. The helicopter with the rescued landed heavily, skidding across the ground as if running the last meters of a marathon. Soldiers ran up. Some were wounded. Others were just crying. Owen was the last to exit. He had a burned shoulder, bruises under his eyes, and an empty magazine. But he walked. Straight. Steady. Like a sniper. The colonel waited near headquarters, clutching a map. 7 rescued. 1 lost. Not perfect, but in this world, that's already a victory. Owen stopped. His gaze was cold, tired. There was no heroism in it. Only reality. It's not a victory, Colonel. It's just the first day. The first morning of hell. The colonel nodded. Then listen. What's next? We lost the city center. No contact with Washington. There are reports of new outbreaks on the East Coast. Hundreds of cities are silent. But here, for now, we're holding on. Owen sat down on a wooden box. He took out a sheet of paper and an old pencil. He began to write. When the medic asked what it was, he replied. Names. Those I saved. And those I couldn't. Smoke on the horizon. One of the soldiers sounded the alarm. Everyone rushed to their positions. But Owen stayed where he was. He had already done his part for the day. The first 24 hours. 14 lives saved. Countless zombies stopped. But most importantly, Owen West survived. And he didn't lose himself. And in a new world where the dead walk the earth and the living lose their humanity, he remains the one with a single goal. See, count, hit, and live. Because the war has only just begun.